Hey, what's up? This is Mark at Alchemist.camp, where we learn Elixir and Phoenix by building things. And today we are continuing to build the simple Phoenix LiveView app series. This is to build a site for my new podcast, Reactor. Specifically today, we'll be setting up the user new pages as well as the forms that those pages need. In those forms, we'll set up real-time validations, some of which will be entirely on the front end, and one of which, the uniqueness of the email address, will require a full trip to the server, but it's so snappy it doesn't even really feel like it. If you are new to the series or to Alchemist Camp, I suggest either going to the big playlist here and starting from the beginning, or go to alchemist.camp/episodes and scroll down to Simple Phoenix LiveView App Setup. Start there. If you're already a member and you're in a hurry, then go to the scaffolding episode, download the source code, and get started from there. With that said, let's get to the episode. And now let's create a view for new. So we'll go back to our index, the same directory, make a new file called new.ex. This module is reactorweb.userlive.new. And we'll use Phoenix LiveView since it is one. And we'll also alias reactor.accounts, and we'll alias accounts.user since we're going to want to use our user struct. As before, we need a render and a mount function, and the render is going to be very simple again. We'll render and take the assigns in, yeah, that was spelled right, as an argument, and phoenix.view.render user view, actually I'll just do user view.render user view.render new.html and pass the assigns along. This is actually not aliased yet, so let's alias that. Alias reactor web.user_view. Now going to our templates, we've got to change the new to an LEX, just like we did with the others, or just like we did with user and will do with the others. This new template has a form in it itself, so we're going to have to change this form in a moment as well. And we've got a link to make into a live link, so live_link, and change this user path to live path. And then change the con into a socket and change this index into user live.index. We'll also change the form into an LEX, make it a live template. And we have some larger changes to make here. We can't use this version of form 4. We need to use a more generic version of the function. Instead of passing in an action and an anonymous function, our action is just going to be a link to the same page we're already on, and then we'll add some Phoenix LiveView helpers. First will be Phoenix change, which will send an event anytime there's a change in one of the fields. And we're looking for validate, so we will send an event called validate, and Phoenix submit gets sent on submission. We'll send an event called save, and then finally Phoenix hook, which is for dealing for JavaScript interop, saved form. And since we now have a generic version of the form, we no longer automatically get the closing form tag, so we need to change this to close the HTML form. And now nothing knows what this form is anymore, so we need to capture it up front in a variable like so. Now everything's compiling again, and we'll go back to our new live template. Our mount function is still going to throw away the first argument, session, because we aren't going to do anything with it. And we'll have a socket, which we are going to use. First thing we need is a change set, referring back to the user controller that was made by our generators See, the first thing we do in a new is we get a change set using Accounts.change_user, and what that does is it just uses user.changeSet, which we get because user is an ecto schema. We want to do the same thing in our LiveView. We'll call it CSet because I think that's actually a little bit clearer to have different names. Accounts.change_user, just an empty user, and then we'll return OK and assign socket change set is the change set we stored in CSet. And then we need to handle two events, one for validate and one for send, since we're sending both of those from the form. Handle event. First we'll do validate, I guess. Validate is going to be user. That user is whatever the form has sent, and we'll capture its parameters, and we'll have the socket as well. We'll build up a change set again. We'll start from an empty user as we did before and pass that into accounts.change_user, and we'll also give it params that came in through the form, and then map.put action insert. This is putting an action into the ecto form. Normally that's done for us with the Phoenix form helpers. Since we're using this this more generic version in form.html.ex, this more generic form helper, we don't have that set for us, so we'll have to do it ourselves. And then no reply, and we'll put the change set in the socket. So assign socket change set is CSet. Oh, what's this squiggly here? Accounts.change_user2 is undefined or private. That's not good. Let's check that out. Account user. Okay, so we'll say ATTRs, and the default value of that is nothing. And then here we'll pass ATTRs. And that should get rid of the squiggly. Very good. Then the next thing is the save. Handle event save. User, it still has params, and there is a socket as well. Again, let's refer to our user controller. And we can see in create, we call accounts.createUser, and then if there is a user, we return it. We return a con with a flash and redirect to show. And if there isn't, then we render new.html again and include the change set errors that came from ecto. So we're going to do a very similar thing in our new function. So case accounts.createUser with those params that were passed in. And if we do have a user, then we want to redirect. So we have to stop, we send a stop and then a socket. And the socket is going to have a redirect to routes.livepath socket user live dot show user, the newly created user. All right, and we could also put that put flash in, put flash info user created. However, it's not entirely stable right now. I guess I saw on GitHub there was a discussion, and Chris McCord said that it wouldn't be Phoenix version dependent, but by Phoenix 1.5, then everything should be uniform across live and traditional views, so your Flash looks the same whether or not live functionality is being used. So let's just continue on. I think I'll comment the flash out though, since it's not going to work right now. And the other path that we can see is an error and an ecto change set. So ecto.change set is cset, and then we'll send no reply, and we'll assign the change set errors to the socket. So socket and change set cset. Okay, we've got some squigglies here. Let's see. Render is should not be a private function. Then user live has to be aliased. So we'll just do it right here. User live and user view. Routes live path is not available. That's because we need to alias the router helpers. So alias reactor web.router.helpers as routes. Okay, we still have one minor issue. Let's look at our templates. So we just had a new .html.lex. Okay, so we have a routes user path here that should be live. Although actually for create, this form doesn't need an action at all. So instead of that, let's see here. We just need the assigns. That's it. So we'll get rid of all the rest. And now we should get rid of all the squigglies. Very good. Now we'll go back to our LiveView, and it should be change set with an E. And let's see if we can actually hit that new page now. So users/new, and it looks like we can. Now we're not going to, well, we can submit it, but if we submit it, we're not going to be able to show it since we haven't made that page yet. Let's just try user with some errors. So they show up instantly. As soon as I typed a single character in name, boom, errors everywhere. We don't really want errors everywhere as soon as someone types a single character. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the form. Fortunately, Phoenix has something built in to help us. That's called Phoenix Debounce, or I should say Phoenix LiveView has it. There are a couple ways of using this. First is to just give it a number of milliseconds. So with 5,000 set, we won't send any of those validation requests until after it's been 5 full seconds. And I'm just going to add the same thing to email and website, since all three of them have validations on them. Then once the page reloads, we should be able to go here and type stuff and get a bit of time before we're actually given those errors. And what I like even more for this case is blur. So we pass it the string blur, and now it won't have any sort of response until we change fields. That way, while you're typing the name, all is good. Then once you leave it, then you're given the validations. So let's say I start at name and I just go to the next field, no problem. But say I start typing something, go to the next field. Now I'm told, okay, email can't be blank. I put in some kind of reasonable-ish email and all is good. Website is okay, but if I do this, must be a URL, come back, delete it entirely, that's okay. Or I can put in an actual URL, HTTP or HTTPS. And we'll do that. All is good. And change the email to something bad, we get an error right away. So this is a bit more reasonable, and we'll just leave it like this. There's one more thing we need that I forgot a moment ago, and that is our save. We'll add a Phoenix disable with saving ... That way, if the network connection is slow or lost, we'll get a message. Of course, this form will have to change once auth is implemented. People aren't going to be just typing in their password hash. In fact, let's just delete this from the form right now. There's never going to be that form. And is verified is going to be hidden from anyone except an admin, probably handled on the back end as well. So we'll delete that. We'll just show these three fields. And now we'll go on to show.